Now, to another story about extreme weather and its impact. Wildfires have plagued Northern California and the Pacific Northwest this year. In California alone, some 6,400 fires burned nearly 1.5 million acres. Most destroy wildlands, but as special correspondent Kat Wise reports, some urban areas are increasingly under threat. And it's not just a danger from fire. Researchers are trying to understand the risks from all that smoke and ash.
Last October, this was Santa Rosa, California's Coffey Park neighborhood. Today, nearly a year later, it looks like this. Crews of busy construction workers are rebuilding hundreds of homes. Nail by nail, communities around the region are rising from the ash. But there are questions about what was in that ash and in the air above that could impact residents long after the rebuilding is done. On a recent morning, air pollution scientist Keith Bine drove through the streets of Coffey Park, hauling 2 small electric vehicles and some equipment he hopes will help him eventually answer some of those questions. These Mercedes smart EVs are a key part of a prototype system Bain has designed to get better air quality information to the public in the aftermath of a wildfire. Think Storm Chaser, but instead of looking for tornadoes, he's chasing wildfire smoke.
I call this the Rapid Response Mobile Research Unit. We can deploy this thing at a drop of a hat, and we can go anywhere we want to. There doesn't have to be power.
Each vehicle can run his sophisticated air sampling equipment for 18 hours.
I'm going to flip a switch to turn it on. There it goes.
Bine is part of a University of California at Davis collaborative research project looking at the short-term and possible long-term health impacts from the North Bay wildfires. The study is funded by the National Institutes of Health, which is also a NewsHour funder. After spending several days sampling in Redding at the Carr Fire, he brought his mobile lab to Santa Rosa to see what might still be lingering in the air.
The wildfires that I sampled from Napa and Sonoma were this off-white, tannish color that I've never ever seen before. When you have new situations like this, these urban wildfires, now you're, any consumer product, cars, paint, cleaners, construction materials, you name it, it's all going up in flames, then all of those emissions are going to be very different, both chemically and most likely toxicologically, compared to what we normally study as a very isolated wildfires.
His samples will be tested back in a lab for toxins like metals and organic compounds from products like pesticides. But eventually, he wants to provide that kind of information in real time to residents. Wildfire smoke is known to cause a host of health issues, and a growing body of research suggests it may contribute to thousands of premature deaths annually. But scientists fear those health impacts may be compounded if the smoke is more toxic.
Okay, so this is going to be the great room on this side. Kitchen right here.
Jeff Okrepke lost the Coffey Park home he and his family had been renting for 5 years before the fires. He's eager to return and move on, but he's still thinking about those immediate days after the fires.
The first time we came back, stuff was still smoldering, stuff was still warm. Then it starts to kind of sink in. I spent like 8 hours on that property just kicking up ash. What's that going to do to me,
He's also concerned about his young family's health. Just 3 days after the fires, he and his wife Stephanie learned she was pregnant.
At first, I didn't bother putting the mask on because I didn't know I was pregnant. But then after the fact, I was like, okay, every time I stepped out, I had to put a mask on. I don't think it filters 100% of all the particles that are out in the air.
Baby Quinn is now several months old. She's thriving, but her parents are wondering if her exposure in utero to wildfire contaminants may have an impact down the road. That's a question also on the minds of 2 UC Davis public health researchers.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Rebecca.
Rebecca Schmidt and Mackenzie Oliver are enrolling women like Stephanie who were pregnant during or after the fires in a study.
Such a good girl.
They're collecting biospecimens, including cheek swabs, blood, breast milk, placentas, and hair, to assess toxins the women and their babies may have been exposed to.
What we have seen is that people are still having symptoms from this fire almost a year later. So this is the agreement.
Schmidt is the study's principal investigator, and she's also involved in a larger general health survey with about 2,000 participants.
As these fires become more common and they're more likely to hit urban areas, we just need to know what are the best actions to take to reduce the risk for some of these longer term and short term health impacts. So things like, when do we need to evacuate them?
Smoke, of course, is one byproduct of wildfires. Another is ash. Nearly 2 million tons of debris from 4 counties was cleared by contractors for the Army Corps of Engineers, but many areas remain untouched.
We had a sense of potential hazards that could be in the fire debris, and we're very cognizant of that, and that informed many of our actions.
Dr. Karen Holbrook works for the Sonoma County Department of Health. Despite the enormity of the disaster, she says the department acted quickly to protect the public. She believes there should be ongoing studies of health impacts, but she's not worried.
My sense is that over the long term, this level of concern for a broad toxicity is overstated. I live here. I'm feeling comfortable about it. There was some that went up into the air and settled down, and it is going to work its way in, but I don't believe, truly, I don't believe that it's at a level where it's going to cause harm over the long term.
The county health department did not collect ash samples, but another team of Davis scientists did.
The instrument measures the masses of the ions that are coming through.
Professor Tom Young and grad student Gabby Black are currently testing samples from both wildland areas and former homes that Black collected last fall in her native Sonoma. The results so far show a big difference between the two.
We see thousands of compounds in the household samples that we don't see in the wildland samples. The vast majority of those we cannot yet say what they are. And we can't say what their toxicity is. Many of them are not necessarily a cause for concern. The diversity of organic chemicals, our body is designed to deal with a lot of that. The problem is it doesn't deal with all of it.
Of all the threats to public health now being studied, one became immediately clear after the fires: contaminated water. In Santa Rosa's Fountain Grove neighborhood, benzene and other chemicals from melted plastic pipes leached into the water supply.
It really was not something that had ever been considered or found to be an issue following a fire like this.
Bennett Hornstein is the director of Santa Rosa Water.
And as these homes unfortunately burned, the plastic burned and gave off chemicals. And that happened also coincidentally with losing water pressure. And that allowed this contaminated water in the homes to come deep into our water distribution system.
The Water District has been replacing damaged service lines at about 400 sites with safer but more expensive copper piping. 250,000 gallons of water a week are now being flushed through the system to clear the chemicals, and water testing is happening regularly. Back in Coffey Park, Jeff Okrepke says the recovery of his community will continue long after the last house is rebuilt.
We are going to be, unfortunately, the poster child for fire recovery at a large scale for the next who knows how many years. We're already seeing it with what happened in Redding. People are coming to us and like, where are you guys a year out? And I think we need to be the ones that are at the forefront of attacking these public health concerns and making sure we have answers.
Okrepke hopes to be in his new home by next spring. UC Davis researchers hope to start releasing some of their results later this year. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Kat Wise in Santa Rosa, California.